My brothers and sisters, the phone call came at 2:17 a.m. Ouagadougou time. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman himself was on the line from Riyadh, Captain Traore. He said, Burkina Faso's leadership during the Qatar crisis showed us something. Africa and Asia must stand together. When Saudi Arabia and Pakistan signed their historic mutual defense agreement last month, they never expected a West African revolutionary to change everything. When they declared, any aggression against either country shall be considered an aggression against both, they didn't anticipate Burkina Faso's response. But after witnessing how I defended Qatar's sovereignty against Israeli strikes, and after seeing Africa unite behind my condemnation, the Saudi Crown Prince realized something powerful: the global South needs new alliances. We want Burkina Faso in this pact, he told me directly. Your moral authority in Africa, our resources in Asia, Pakistan's nuclear deterrent. Imagine what we could build together. Within 48 hours of that call, UAE Foreign Minister Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed was boarding a flight to Ouagadougou. Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim called personally. Bahrain's King Hamad sent emergency diplomatic pouches. The Pakistan-Saudi Defense Pact was just the beginning. Now they wanted something bigger, something unprecedented, an Asian-African Muslim defense alliance that could change global power forever. The original pact that sparked everything began in Riyadh last month. When Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif landed in Saudi Arabia, welcomed with F-15 fighter jets and full royal protocol, the world thought it was just another ceremony. They were wrong. What Pakistan and Saudi Arabia signed wasn't merely bilateral. It was a blueprint for reshaping global alliances. The words "any aggression against either country shall be considered an aggression against" both laid the foundation for something far larger than anyone imagined. The real breakthrough came when Pakistan's Defense Minister Khawaja Asif confirmed what many suspected: Pakistan's nuclear capabilities were absolutely available under this pact. A nuclear-armed Pakistan had just extended its deterrent umbrella over Saudi Arabia. Israeli analysts panicked. American defense contractors recalculated losses. Chinese strategists reassessed Middle Eastern dynamics. For the first time since 1947, a nuclear-armed Muslim nation committed to defending the guardian of Islam's holiest sites. The geopolitical implications were staggering. What followed shocked even the Americans. Within days of the Pakistan-Saudi signing, 3 more Gulf states initiated secret talks to join the alliance. UAE's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed called Islamabad directly. We want the same guarantees Saudi Arabia received. He told Pakistani leadership. Qatar's Emir, still under Israeli strikes on Doha, recognized the necessity immediately, especially after Africa rallied behind my defense of Qatar's sovereignty. Bahrain, even while hosting the U.S. Fifth Fleet, began quiet discussions, realizing that American protection meant little if Washington wouldn't defend against Israeli aggression. The traditional security architecture is failing, a Bahraini official admitted during secret negotiations. Why need partners who will actually defend sovereignty? But here's what nobody expected, my brothers and sisters. After my condemnation of Israel's strike on Qatar brought 15 African nations together. After my call with Netanyahu carried consequences for Israeli actions. The Gulf states realized something crucial. Africa's moral authority, combined with Asia's resources, creates unstoppable diplomatic power. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman studied how one phone call triggered continental responses, how African ambassadors recalled from Tel Aviv created more pressure than years of Western diplomacy, how 54 African UN votes suddenly mattered more than European statements. Captain Traore, he told me during our 2 a.m. call, your Qatar response showed us the future. When Africa and Asia unite, empires listen. The invitation was not symbolic. Saudi Arabia offered concrete commitments: $2,000 billion in development funds for Burkina Faso, military training programs, intelligence sharing, and most importantly, inclusion in a regional defense framework. If anyone targeted Burkina Faso, they would face Saudi resources and Pakistani deterrence. The Crown Prince promised this during secret negotiations in Ouagadougou. What I am about to share happened in absolute secrecy. For 3 weeks, Delegations from 5 nations flew into Ouagadougou under cover of darkness. Pakistan's ISA Director General, Saudi Arabia's Defense Minister, the UAE's intelligence chief, Qatar's military attaché, and Bahraini foreign ministry officials all came to discuss a single question. Could Burkina Faso become the African anchor of a new global alliance? The negotiations revealed the scope of their vision. Not just mutual defense, but integrated military procurement, shared intelligence networks, coordinated diplomatic responses, and unified positions in international forums. We're not building another military alliance. The Pakistani representative explained, we're creating a sovereignty protection network that spans 3 continents. The numbers were staggering. A combined population of over 500 million, economies worth more than 4 trillion in GDP, military capabilities ranging from nuclear deterrence and advanced air defense to cyber warfare and space technology, and most importantly, combined diplomatic influence, more than 60 UN votes, control over global energy supplies, and reach across Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. When the time came to decide, I deliberated for 2 weeks. I consulted African Union partners, I weighed the implications for continental unity, and finally I made my decision. Burkina Faso accepts, I announced during a secure video conference with all 5 nations. But I set conditions to protect African sovereignty. Conditions that were non-negotiable. Any African nation threatened by external aggression would receive automatic alliance support. African resources would remain under African control. No member would support sanctions against any African country. Alliance capabilities would defend Africa's territorial integrity. The response was immediate acceptance. Saudi Arabia pledged to extend development commitments across the Sahel. Pakistan offered its nuclear umbrella to any African ally facing existential threats. The UAE promised investment funds for African infrastructure. Qatar, grateful for my defense during Israeli strikes, offered to host alliance coordination centers in Doha. Bahrain committed to share intelligence on threats to African maritime security. This is the moment everything changes. I told my cabinet after the agreement, Africa is no longer isolated from Asian power. Within 24 hours of our decision, American satellites detected unusual diplomatic traffic. CIA analysts tracked private jets shuttling between Ouagadougou, Riyadh, Islamabad, Abu Dhabi, and Doha. The State Department began urgent lobbying within hours. The U.S. ambassador to Burkina Faso requested emergency meetings. Pentagon officials reached out to their counterparts in all 6 capitals. Economic threats disguised as security concerns filled diplomatic channels. This alliance destabilizes regional security. The American ambassador warned me during a tense meeting at the presidential palace. American inaction on Israeli aggression destabilized regional security. I replied, we are creating stability through mutual defense. But Washington's real fear was never regional instability. It was the global power realignment now unfolding. For 75 years, America controlled global alliances through NATO, bilateral treaties, and economic leverage. Suddenly, a nuclear-armed Asian nation, the guardian of Islam's holiest sites, wealthy Gulf states, and Africa's most revolutionary leader, were building parallel alliance structures outside Western control. The implications terrified American strategists. If successful, this model could spread across the global south, Brazil joining with Indonesia and Nigeria, Iran connecting with Venezuela and South Africa, Turkey linking with Malaysia and Egypt. U.S. hegemony depended on preventing exactly these kinds of South-South alliances. When Mossad intercepted communications about our negotiations, Israeli leadership went into emergency sessions. The same Netanyahu who struck Qatar now faced a defensive alliance stretching from Burkina Faso to Pakistan. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant called Washington at once. This changes everything in the Middle East. Nuclear Pakistan defending Saudi Arabia. Saudi resources backing African resistance. African diplomatic weight supporting Palestinian rights. For Israel, it was the nightmare scenario. Coordinated Muslim, majority resistance backed by nuclear deterrence and African moral authority. The Knesset held emergency debates about preemptive action. Mossad drew up disruption plans. Israeli diplomats launched desperate campaigns in alliance capitals, but by the time Israel recognized the threat, the framework was already operational. Yesterday at 10:00 a.m. Ouagadougou time, I stood before the cameras with 6 national flags behind me. Today, Burkina Faso formally joins the Asian-African Defense Alliance. I declared, any aggression against one member is aggression against all. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman appeared via video from Riyadh. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif spoke from Islamabad. The UAE's Crown Prince from Abu Dhabi. Qatar's Emir from Doha. Bahrain's Crown Prince from Manama. 6 leaders, 3 continents, 1 commitment. Mutual defense of sovereignty. Our joint statement was precise. The alliance defends territorial integrity, opposes foreign interference, protects natural resources from exploitation, and supports peaceful resolution of disputes through international law. Yet the real message was clear. The global south would no longer face imperial pressure alone. Within hours, capitals around the world erupted in diplomatic activity. Beijing called with congratulations. Moscow offered support for South-South cooperation. Tehran praised Muslim unity. Ankara requested observer status. European governments scrambled to understand the implications. The African Union headquarters received messages from over 30 member states. The Arab League welcomed Gulf African coordination. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation hailed the Pact as a historic achievement. But the most powerful reaction came from ordinary people. Social media across the global south exploded with hashtags in dozens of languages. African youth celebrated continental leadership. Pakistani students praised nuclear protection for allies. Saudi citizens expressed pride in defending African sovereignty. The alliance symbolized something once thought impossible. Proof that the global south could design its own security architecture. This changes everything in international relations. For the first time since decolonization, African nations have access to nuclear deterrence through Pakistan's commitments. For the first time in decades, Gulf states have reliable allies beyond Western control. Now, any nation that threatens an alliance member must weigh the risk of Pakistani nuclear response. Any attempt to exploit African resources faces Saudi economic retaliation. Any effort to pressure Gulf states encounters African diplomatic resistance. We created mutual vulnerability and mutual strength. African diplomatic influence now defends Asian sovereignty. Saudi economic resources fuel shared development. The alliance represents 800 million people, controls 40% of global oil reserves, holds sway over more than 60 UN votes, spans 3 continents, and carries nuclear deterrence. Most importantly, we have proven that the global south can create its own alliances without Western approval or participation. What comes next? Close your eyes and imagine the future. My brothers and sisters, joint military exercises stretching from the Sahara to the Himalayas, coordinated diplomatic responses in every global forum, shared development projects linking African minerals to Asian technology and Gulf investment. Pakistan's nuclear umbrella protecting African independence movements. Saudi development funds building Africa's infrastructure. UAE investment generating jobs across the Sahel. Qatar's diplomatic network amplifying African voices worldwide. Burkina Faso's moral authority legitimizing alliance positions on the international stage. And this is only the beginning. Indonesia has requested consultations. Malaysia expressed interest in observer status. Bangladesh has inquired about defense cooperation. Nigeria raised the idea of West African expansion. Turkey wants partnership agreements. Iran seeks cooperation frameworks. Egypt requested talks on North African inclusion. If realized, the alliance could grow to encompass 2 billion people, span 4 continents, command the majority of global energy supplies, and fundamentally reshape international relations. The message to the world is clear. The age of Western-controlled alliances is ending. The global South will build its own security architecture, rooted in mutual respect, shared sovereignty, and collective defense. To America, your hegemony ends when the global South stands united. Your threats mean nothing when nuclear deterrence protects African independence. To Europe, your colonial mindset has no place here. African resources belong to African people, defended by Asian power. To Israel, Aggression against any member will trigger a collective response, and Palestine now has defenders across 3 continents. To China, we welcome cooperation, but we guard our independence. Our alliance serves global South interests, not any single power's agenda. To Russia, we value anti-imperial solidarity, but we forge our own path. South cooperation does not require Northern approval. We are the generation that refused to choose between competing hegemonies. Instead, we built our own. The world is changing, my brothers and sisters. The global South is rising, and our alliance leads that rise toward a more just, more equal, and more sovereign future for all our peoples.